Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 460 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Zeph Red Olive, and we have the full crew here this week. Kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Monday, Richard?
Good morning. Recovering from a weekend of moto grinding.
Have you been junding them out, Richard?
There was Jund. I don't know if I'm junding anyone out, though.
Well, I'm going to ask you about that because that's one of our topics for today is LCI and Constructed. But before we get into all that, we got another co-host in Grim. Good morning, Grim. How are you today?
Pretty good. Also been grinding. I guess the team I was on, we ended up winning the little Street Fighter tournament. So
Ooh,
I'm pretty happy
Oh my
about
god.
that.
Are you a Street Champion Pro now? You
Dude,
did it?
I won't lie to you. Having only one of the greatest fighting game players to ever coach you probably helps. like probably helps. Okay. But yeah, so we ended up winning it. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. Have you ever played fighting games before this, or you were literally like learning fighting games for this event?
Yeah, like we had a week and a half's time to all learn just a fighting game. This was my first ever like foray into like actually playing the fighting game instead of just rolling my hands across the buttons and button mashing. So I guess I'm a jury main now. So I guess that's pretty cool.
Oh, that is sweet. So our plan for today, we got a bunch of different topics. We got a couple of little ones. There's some new promos, Magic Cons coming up next year. A couple of big ones. There was a couple of interesting articles about what to do about Standard, which we wanted to delve into because I thought they were really interesting. And then we wanted to talk about Lost Caverns of Ixalan in Constructed, Standard, Potter, and Mioneer. We've all been playing. We got some tournament results. So that's the overview for today. Before we
get Potter and Mioneer.
Did I actually?
Potter and Mioneer.
Potter
and Mioneer.
Best formats. Before we get into it, though, a reminder that our show today is brought to you by Card Conduit. And if you want to sell some Potter and Mioneer cards, you can do that over at cardconduit.com. If you ever get tired of all the hassles that go into buy listing, Card Conduit lets you skip them. You can use a curated service to send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% fee. And if you want to do a bit of work, you can use a sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just 2%. And no matter which one you choose, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. And our show's also brought to you by Magic at Sea. Magic at Sea is the ultimate way to play Magic the Gathering. You can join players from all around the world for this unique tournament on one of the most immersive cruise ships in the Caribbean, featuring commander and sealed events. You'll have a chance to win prizes from a huge prize pool and make new friends, all while enjoying a 6-night Caribbean vacation. The ship sails March 17th, 2024, and space is running out, so make sure to check out magicatsea.net today for more details. So thank you to Magic at Sea for supporting the show. And let's talk some Magic, and let's start with the easy topics, and we'll leave the big ones for the end. So we got a couple of promo announcements this week. Richard, what promos are coming up in Magic?
All right. The holiday promo, which I guess just goes out to like Wizards employees and some content creators, basically friends and family of Wizards, but you can buy them on eBay. Usually people like throw them up. But Seasons sequels, X triple blue instant, pitch the titles of up to X holiday themed sequels to target spell. Copy that spell for each title pitched, except the copy has that name. You may choose new copies or new targets for those copies. This is silver bordered in case you didn't get it. It's acorned. It looks black bordered, but the acorn is there if you squint hard. I don't. Does anyone?
It's cute. I don't know how much people actually care about these. I remember one time we did like a Commander Clash podcast where we like ranked these, and it was like the least popular podcast we ever did. So I don't know if many people actually care about the holiday promos. This one's kind of funny though, right? Like I don't know. The joke is fine.
What are holiday themed sequels that you would watch? Like Home Alone 2.
I mean, this is the great question, right? Like, what is a Christmas movie? I mean, like Seth mentioned, I don't know if anybody cares about the card, but I will say the topic on the card, though, like that's often
Is Lord of the
hotly
Rings
debated.
a holiday themed sequel? Like,
This
what,
actually-
what exactly?
This is just going
Is
to lead to like
Die
a
Hard a
half-hour
Christmas
argument,
movie,
yeah,
right?
about
Like,
what
yeah,
counts
like-
as a Christmas movie.
Because like I guess now, right? Like this means Hawkeye is a Christmas TV show, right? So like, or I guess it might not be. It's Marvel. I don't know. Is it Christmas? Is it not? I have no clue.
Well, it's holiday themed, so any holiday, Krim, we could be celebrating Marvel this
Yeah.
winter season. So you never know.
I mean, I do that
So-
every year.
All right. On to black bordered promos. Secret Lair Showdown promos. So those are the ones given out at Magicons. These are pretty rare, right? Because they go to like the top placing players. Spell Pierce, Murktide Regent, Dark Ritual, all with some pretty unique Secret Lair looking art. I don't know how to describe them other than they're very colorful, borderless cards.
These cards always end
Where-
up very expensive. So I believe that it's like the Spell Pierce is like just for entering, and then Murktide is for like top 8 or something, and then Dark Rituals for like winning, and it's going to be super rare. But we've seen some of the past versions of these, especially the super scarce, you got to win ones, be like thousands of dollars. So I mean, I guess it's a pretty nice prize to get a card that it's essentially like a serialized card, right? Because there's only so many events that happen at Magic Cons in 2024. So even though it's not numbered, the number of these that exist is going to be really, really small, especially not for Spell Pierce, but for the rest of them. So kind of sweet.
I wish you couldn't sell these. I wish, like, if you wanted this Dark Ritual, you have to win the event.
You have to.
And it, like, I don't know, they somehow stamp your name on it or something afterwards, and like that's it. Like, you have to win this event. Like
wouldn't it be
that's the
funnier?
ultimate flex, right? Anyone can whip out $2 million and buy a serialized ring, okay? But can you win? Can you win the event at MagicCon to get the Dark Ritual? That would be hot.
It'd be funnier actually if I owned a card that just said Richard on it. So I don't know.
You gotta show up to the what was it, the Brawl event? Be the one of one player there. get all the promos and go home.
I'm not gonna lie. Look, I am biased in this. I would never want them to not sell this, because then I wouldn't have been able to bought the Jace from Martin Yuza or whatever.
They also announced the next year of Magic Con. So we knew about Chicago in February, Amsterdam in June, and then Vegas the end of October next year. So about a month later than it was this year. There's also one missing. Usually there's 4 a year, but if you read the article carefully, there's like this one little line that there'll be like another event to win the Dark Ritual at that hasn't been announced. So I'm assuming there's got to be one more that they haven't announced for some reason. So I don't know why, but I assume there's one more somewhere in the like springtime, because that's the one that's missing. So we'll have to wait and see. But those are the Magic Cons for the next year as well. So I assume we'll be in Vegas. Krim, are you doing Chicago? I think I'm doing Chicago.
We're gonna both be at Chicago, and I can't wait because I need to leave this warm California weather and
Get up to the
deep-dish
cold
pizza.
north.
Yeah, honestly, the things I know about Chicago: the Bulls, Knuckle Puck, a band, and pizza, deep dish pizza. And let me tell you something. Last time I was in Chicago, I had so much Lou Malnati's and this one other spot that was really good. I don't even remember the name, but yeah, I fanboyed because Lou Malnati's like followed me on Twitter or whatever, and I was like, "Yo, I love your deep dish."
What are the odds of you doing Amsterdam, Krim? Is that? I think that is the one I'm very very unlikely to do. But
I would love to do Amsterdam. But unless I'm getting sponsored or like anything like that, I don't know if I'm paying out of my own pocket to go all the way to Amsterdam.
That's probably an expensive trip. What about you, Richard? Are you going to be making I know we usually do Vegas every year, but any chance that the Codfather shows up at another Magic Con?
Richard can't go because then I can't take care of myself as I am his son.
He needs to chaperone you. Yeah, you need a chaperone.
Yeah, like if as he is my father, if he isn't there, the house is gone. Right? I'm gonna,
we counted down the days until my son is old enough to play Magic. So like maybe 2 more years, and then he can play mono green, and then we can go.
That's Richard's talking about me, by the way. Every time, just imagine me when he's.
We've been training Krim on the ways of the Farseek. It's coming. It's happening. He still has trouble attacking with creatures. He doesn't understand this concept.
Maybe Richard is me.
All right, let's jump into our first big topic, and I thought this was very interesting. So there were two articles in the past week-ish, or past couple of weeks, let's say, about Standard. The first one was from Zach Hill. Richard, I know you read this one. What is the kind of the TLDR? Because you can check these out over on Hipsters of the Coast, both of these articles. So if you want to get the whole thing, go read the articles. They're both actually very good. But what's the TLDR of the first article, the Zach Hill article?
Yeah, so the Zach Hill article is a pretty interesting one. Zach Hill was a designer on Wizards of the Coast, but he was talking about what standard actually means. And he's not talking about the format exactly, but he was talking about this like mythical standard format for onboarding players and where players get started. And essentially, uh, he was saying like it has to be a place that Wizards can control. Rotation is ideal because they can control it end to end. It has to be a place for new players to come on, and it has to like kind of do what you expect. So the core of Magic the Gathering is kind of like play creatures, attack, hit people, and like what is not expected is on turn one you fill your whole graveyard, reanimate something out, smack someone for 20, like one shot them, and like that's it. Like that's cool and all, but he's saying like that's not what people are thinking of when you initially give them the idea of Magic. So like Standard is supposed to convey this. And what's interesting is he said basically since Fire Design the past 2 years, none of the winning decks, like the Pro Tour decks, the Grand Prix decks, all those stuff, like they don't really meet these criteria that he laid out. And then he goes on to list like a bunch of problems, like why they might have happened. But he says like he doesn't really know like what is what is the main problem, how much it contributes to this or how to fix it. Like, for example, Wizards focusing on Commander make standard packs full of Commander cards. We know that's a problem, but how much of a problem is it compared to Fire Design? Like, nobody knows, right? But he kind of just lays it out. But it's a pretty interesting read to see, like, the eyes of a designer. But basically, we need a standard place to play for new players and for onboarding people. And currently, Standard is not that. It's kind of broken away from that. So we need to either fix it or find a new standard. And
So
currently, the standard we're using is Commander, which clearly doesn't meet any of these criteria. But
I
So
actually think that's so important that we do have a standard, some new way to onboard people, because everybody thinks that it's good to start with Commander, but like, dude, it's so intimidating. Like, imagine just me showing you, hey, by the way, here's like 20,000 cards. Like, and then
Yeah.
like on top of that, like, hey, do you like, don't worry about it. Just read these textbooks and things like that on the front and back of this card. And also know your opponent's textbook of cards, which again spans across like a 30-year history. So like I do think that it's good that there's these Commander precons that are very easy to learn, very nice to pick up, but I just think something about a 60 card format is much easier to get into, but maybe I'm just a boomer. I don't know.
So article number 2 kind of comes at the opposite perspective. So this one is from Sam Black. It was like 10 days after the first one. He actually said that, or they actually said that they read Zach's article and that got them to consider Standard again. So this is kind of in response to Zach's article. And what Sam said is they don't really think that Standard is essential anymore. Like when it comes down to it, the issues with Standard is that we have so many products coming out that are not focused on Standard. If you open a Standard booster pack, it's going to have all these cards that are even legal in the format. So Standard is so confusing. And the focus now is Commander. In Sam's view, Commander and Universes Beyond are the intro formats. That's what's getting people into the game. And a Commander precon is going to be better value and easier to get someone to the game than it would be with Standard. So the argument was basically, there's two things we could do. One is just get rid of Standard altogether. They served a purpose in the past, but its time is gone. Sunset Standard. Focus on Pioneer if you want a 60-card intro format, or Modern or whatever. Like those would be the intro formats outside of Commander and Universes Beyond, which are the big ones. Either that or Make it so everything is legal in standard. So your Lord of the Rings set is legal in standard. Your commander precon, yeah, maybe it'll be awkward sometimes that something refers to the command zone or whatever, but make it legal in standard because there's this huge barrier of entry that people don't know what's legal in standard anyway. You open a set booster and you're getting all these cards that you can't even play in standard. And part of what made standard work in the past is you open up a booster and you can play with those cards. Or you could play limited and then use the cards from limited to build a standard deck and get into Magic that way. So you got two very different perspectives on this. Where do you fall on this, Richard? Like, are you more on the like standard needs to be revived and we need to save this for the good of the game? Or what about the just forget it or make everything legal arguments from Sam?
I think standard needs to be revised. But one interesting point they brought up in these articles is like if you just bought some of the hot new cards from this year, like you just went and bought whatever was released, you couldn't even play standard, right? You buy like Lord of the Rings, you buy Doctor Who, you buy whatever, like you buy, even if you buy packs of Ixalan, like you might have cards you can't cobble together a standard deck. So, it's very interesting where Wizards is focused, but Commander is such a bad format for new players. It's unbelievably bad. Like there's 3 people putting pressure on you to play fast. Like you feel very bad for being slow, right? It's bad enough if you have 1 friend, now you have 3. You gotta like understand 3 people's worth of like 30 years of cards. The precons are terrible. Like I don't know who precons are for, aside from like MTG finance people. Like you buy them for reprints and like that's kind of it. Like they are so difficult. Like I've said it before. If I were to start someone off playing Magic the Gathering, their deck would be full of bears, right? They're trying to like untap, upkeep, draw. Like that's what they're working through. Like that's what they're struggling with. And you're like, well, here's this double face card that's sometimes a land, that's sometimes a creature. It has a triggered ability. When it goes to the graveyard, it does this and then that. You're like, what the heck is going on? You need a 4 mana 4/4. That's it. And when you attack at instant speed, you can giant growth. Like that's already like mind blowing for a new player. So I think we gotta bring standard back. Like I was looking at Pokemon cards. Their art is like so big. They have like no rules text, right? Like after like 30 years, their cards are super simple because the only format is standard. You just rotate everything. You don't need to power creep into oblivion. Whereas for us, every standard card is like a tome. Like you need to add all this text to keep increasing the power such that you play this in Commander, such that you play this in Modern. But like if you just actually had like vanilla, Gigantosaurus, like just vanilla creatures. It'd be so much easier for new players. And like standard is the home because you can rotate the cards so that you don't have this weird like power creep dynamic happening.
So, but how do you?
It's so nuts to me that's like we like that's what I remember, right? Like in like teaching friends how to play Magic, it was easier to get them into standard. So I fully think we need a standard. Like you look at One Piece, the card game as well. You like there's just vanilla 3/5. 3 like it costs 3 mana and it has 5 power essentially, right? Like that's just good in One Piece. But, so like isn't that nuts? I don't know. That's kind of nuts.
That is nuts though, but I feel like there's this incentive issue, right? Where like Wizards wants that sweet commander money and they like that's what they want to print cards for, and to make a card exciting for this commander player, like can they really do that? Can they like legitimately print cards like that for the good of standard? I feel like making standard good would require Wizards to not be so focused on commander, and I don't know how you get Wizards to do that, right? Because there's just so much easy money in commander.
But like I think that like commander is great. It's like probably I would say leveling up. I think at its lowest and at its easiest level, I think commander is like a little above intermediate, right? Not exactly a great spot to be if you want to teach somebody the game, right? Like,
yeah.
like having just gone through this myself right now, learning the fighting game scene, it was great, right? Like my coach was able to explain to me just the basics of a fighting game, right? And nothing more. Didn't tell me about the intricate like combo loops, anything like that. And I think that's what Magic needs to be too, though, right? Like I need to just know the basics of the game and not get overwhelmed. And I think that's where standard comes in, while also giving me some outlet to where like maybe I can get my competitive itch where I can like play my cards. And yeah, so I think standard has to be good. And I think we stated this a while back too. I've talked about it on a podcast. I think that standard just has to be there. Like Commander is an amazing format. I love Commander, but I think to onboard new players, you really do need standard.
I think
or some easier format.
Like I would like standard to be good, but I don't think the current version of standard is meeting anyone's goals, and I don't know how we get to the good standard. I feel like I would rather have no standard or the drastic change of making universes beyond legal and standard than whatever the current, like, lugging around the corpse of command, like, standard full of commander cards is. Like, we're in, like, just this very awkward place. What do you think, Richard? Is there any realistic way of Wizards actually changing how they make cards to make standard good again? Or is the cat out of the bag? Is it just too late and we need to think about these extreme options?
It's too late. You actually need Brawl. Like, I don't know.
No.
They got to make this other. They need to make a new format that's somehow accomplishes this, but they're not going to go back to 60 card because there's just too much money in Commander. But like, there's too much boomer money sitting around, essentially, right? Like, every time they release some weird product, it's like the super enfranchised crowd. But to get the new kids to come in, you need to have this like beginner format, but it can't even be like this weird beginner format that like is seen as like scuffed and you need to upgrade to the real format. Like, remember when standard was the format? Like, everyone played standard because you liked it and it was the best format and it was the beginner format. Like, that's what you need. That's Brawl or something, right? I don't know. Like the argument is standard doesn't actually be the standard format, but the only one with the small enough card pool is standard, right? Like, once even to get to Pioneer, the card pool's pretty big.
Yeah.
By the time you get to Commander, it's disgusting. It's like harder than Legacy. So I don't know. Like, Brawl sucks. We've tried it.
Yeah, Brawl's bad.
We need something.
Draft, sealed. They just axed limited with the pack,
well, is it
right? But limited would be another way to do it.
See,
is it
like,
limited
I think
even harder?
That's a misconception.
Because you gotta know how to like build a
limited
deck
is
and
super
draft. Like,
hard.
I feel like limited's actually like harder than Commander.
That's
if I was
true.
gonna rank the formats by how easy it is
block
to get into.
constructed. We bring back block constructed.
Except we
in
don't have
theory,
blocks.
that's great.
but
Except for it
yeah.
kind of like it kind of sucks.
It does kind of suck, and we don't even have blocks anymore. So that would be tough.
The other thing that Wizards doesn't talk about is the promos. Like, if they made standard and didn't make promo cards for standard, like, not only is your card ridiculous, it's now movie postered and it looks nothing like a real card. You can't read it. Remember the big hoopla over Texas Cryptic Command?
Yep.
And then they're like, oh, we can't do this ever again. Like, this is ridiculous. And then now they do it like literally like for every staple of every card of every set. It's daunting as an existing player, but as a new player, you just give up, right? Like you're like, what is this? Like, I can't read this at all. I don't know what this is.
I don't know. I don't know about that, right? Like the Texas stuff even back then was like fine. I didn't care about it then.
But it was so rare. Right? There were like 4 Texas cards that were actually playable, and you would like rarely ever see them, and you knew what they were. Now, like, every single card has one, right?
I mean, like, as long as there is an easily accessible version and that like a normal base set version, I don't think it matters. I think that part's fine.
Like I told you, you put the front side is movie poster, the back side is the normal printing.
There you
so that you can flip it around and like you can read a normal card if you want, and then you still have your promo version if you want.
That could actually work. I mean, I like the like cryptic and whatnot, like Texas cards, but I do think there's a cost for new players. Like, it does. I mean, if you're brand new to the game and that's like the first card you see, it's going to be kind of confusing. So I do think there's a cost, but I don't know. I think it's probably worth it overall, I would say. So yeah, the articles are really good. Check them out. I'm curious, have y'all been playing Standard since we got Lost Caverns of Ixalan? Like, how are we feeling about where we're at currently in Standard? So that's other big topic we want to talk about today. What do you think, Grim? Like, how big of an impact has LCI made?
I think it's huge. I think it's done a very good job. Like, I enjoy this Standard a lot. We're still, I think it's still early enough in the trial mode where we're trying a lot of cards out, but we're seeing a lot of LCI being played, right? I won't lie, some of these cards are definitely a big shocker. We're talking like uncommons that have appeared out of nowhere, which I assume we'll talk about in a little bit, so I won't talk about it now. But yeah, like one of the things that I talked about like on one of my streams was that I think a lot of the power lies in the uncommons, right, for this set. And it looks like it's true with some of the events that have come out over the weekend. And I love it. I think this standard's pretty powerful. I think LCI is pretty powerful. I don't know why they fixed Cascade. By fixing it, I mean they power boosted it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit once we get to Pioneer, which yeah, that's Watsy.
So we got a standard challenge over the weekend.
Yeah, we got 2 actually.
So I'm looking at one of them, Esper mid-range up there.
Yeah,
right.
The uncommon that Krim is referring to is Deep Cavern Bat. It's like a Tide
had that on their
It's like
bingo card.
It's a 2-mana 1/1 flying lifelink. When it ETBs, you exile a non-land card from their hand until the bat leaves the battlefield. That is played as the full 4 of in multiple versions of this Esper deck. And then Subterranean Schooner, 2-mana 3/4 vehicle. When it attacks, target creature that crewed it this turn explores, crew 1. It's a very cheap crew cost. Conveniently, a bat can get in there. But that is played as a 2 of in these Esper decks. So
there's also
Esper's been around. It's still good.
Still, I mean, I don't think anybody thought it was going to go away, right? Like it's a good deck. It got new cards. We're just curious to see how many new cards actually get played. And I think the best creature land that has been printed out of all of them in Standard now, Restless Anchorage, aka the bird one for you, Richard.
That's right. That's in there too.
That's in there, and like that's like, no surprise. It's got a really cheap cost to activate, and it's flying, and it makes a map. Instantly, that's just free value, right? On top of that, more of the uncommons that we've seen, Spyglass Siren, right? That's obviously another good one. What's the 4-mana red thing that's pretty much Bloodbraid Elf? We've been seeing a lot of that on the ladder as well.
Oh, Geological Appraiser or something like that. Yeah,
that's it. Geological Appraiser. Like you're seeing a lot of the uncommons and the power of the uncommons of this set. And that's kind of just making me really happy. I think that's really cool. And there's like this weird, as I said, Spyglass Siren. So it's just a 1-mana, 1/1 flying pirate. When it enters the battlefield, make a map token. So map tokens, are they good? Like, Seth, what have you been playing it? Richard, have you been playing it? Because like,
I think they're actually like pretty. I think they're actually pretty mad. So like, I think there are good cards that make map tokens. I think the 1-drop is one of them. There's a pretty like long history now of cards like Thraben Inspector, like kind of punching above their weight. And this one even has flying, which like is an additional upside. Although overall, I felt like the main way I've given my opponents map tokens is with Get Lost, which has been really good.
Yeah,
I felt like they're not like that strong. Like, am I wrong, Krim? Like, have you felt like the map tokens are like, there's some synergy. Sometimes you can like sack them to something for value, but I feel like compared to Clues or Blood even, this is like the lowest tier of artifact token we've gotten so far.
I think it may look like it's weak. Maybe it's not a Clue, but I will say that it is very subtle. And it is strong and it is efficient because of that. Just being able to either A, draw that land, get it out of the way, or pump a creature, and then potentially pitching whatever's on the top anyways. It like arguably it could even be better than, I think it might be better than what you're giving it credit for. I will say that cards like Get Lost are huge. Like I have really liked Get Lost. Map tokens do require you to have a creature for it to be relevant. So that's where like maybe a Clue is a little more universal. It can be played anywhere at any time. And so yeah, like I don't know, but map tokens in a deck with creatures looks good. Like if your deck plays creatures, it's a little awkward, right? Like if I Get Lost you and then you pump your creature and then you start swinging in for lethal or something weird like that, like it could get pretty awkward.
I wish you could activate them at instant speed. It's very weird to me that all the other artifact tokens can be activated at instant speed, and for some reason this one has the sorcery speed restriction. So I think that like is one of the things that keeps the power in check a little bit. I'm surprised how many Subterranean Schooners there are, because have you played with that card, Krim? I've only played against it. I haven't put it in a deck, so I haven't actually played with it. It hasn't killed me much when my opponents play it. I don't know. I didn't realize it was like a scary card, but now it's in a lot of the top performing lists of the weekend. What's your experience with the Schooner, Ben? Like, I know there was some hype about like, oh, like Smuggler's Copter vibes when it was first previewed. Is it close at all?
I think the Schooner is very nice. It plays real nice. I don't know if like, it's anywhere near needing to be banned, like, or like to the power level that Smuggler's Copter is, but it is efficient. And it's really good in the decks that you're seeing it in, right? Just because then I get to up it, because again, it's only crew 1, right? Which then normally before it's like, okay, cool, it's just crew 1, whatever. I answer or let it hit for a few turns, it's fine, right? And then answer it. But the body that you're crewing it with gets bigger. It's smoothing out your draws, but it's still like a little bit slower than Looter Scooter, but it's still very good. So I've liked that.
That is such a good crew target. It has
Yeah.
lifelink. So you're growing your lifelink flyer out of range, and then you can just keep smacking them. So I think this card's insane.
The other card
think
that
it's better,
snowballs. It's one
or-
of those snowball cards, right? Like you don't care too much for it, but like if you just leave it, their creature keeps getting bigger and bigger. They get card advantage or whatever. Like it's not good for you. So even it doesn't have evasion, but it's big enough to like get in there. It's like a 3/4. It's not terrible.
Well,
I think-
would you say on par or better than Looter Scooter?
Oh.
Oh, Looter Scooter had flying. Looter Scooter had flying.
Woo!
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's.
I
mean,
just
it just
Well,
gets
very-
stonewalled so much. Like that's kind of the issue. Like if this had flying, it would be Looter Scooter, probably better than Looter Scooter. It would be so good. But I have found like there's times when it can snowball, but there's also times where your opponent plays a 4/4 and you're just like, oh, my whole deck does nothing now, and it's very sad. So
It's a 2-drop, Seth. I would expect a 4-drop to be able to block it profitably.
the other card that's really impressed me is Anam Packle or whatever, the Boros legendary 3-drop that's showing up alongside Adeleine, the one that makes gnome tokens whenever you attack, and it like snowballs as you get more counters on it. There's been some like Boros aggro decks that have played that along with Adeleine that have had a lot of success. So it's been interesting to see that kind of take off a little bit and be, I think, a little bit better than people expected. I didn't see a lot of hype around that card during spoiler season, but it's actually one of the cards having a big impact now.
I mean, one thing that I am also seeing that's probably in that same deck is Inti. I've been playing with that as well.
Yep.
Inti has been a very good 2-drop. Which is whenever you attack, you may discard a card. When you do put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature, it gains trample until end of turn. Whenever you discard one or more cards, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until your next end step. This was just on a 2-drop. I didn't think much of it, but like it very quickly spirals. This card needs to be answered. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's like that's what I mean, right? Like we're seeing even more of that Warden of the Inner Sky. We haven't even touched on everybody's favorite Kindred deck, which is dinosaurs, right? We're seeing dinosaurs, which one of the I think the best cards in that deck, or maybe because for obvious reasons, I think Scytheclaw Raptor is a house. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, Scytheclaw Raptor deals 4 damage to them. It is a two-way street. Both people take the damage, but the card seems really good, and it's on a 4/3 body. Right? Like, I don't know, this dinosaur deck, I don't know if it's real or not, but I think that uncommon is.
Yeah, it feels to me like a really good sideboard card. I don't know, like when you think about like mono red or something, I wonder, do you think it's fast enough? Because that would be like an obvious home for it. I feel like when it's good, it's really good. But then some matchups, your opponent's just not really playing at instant speed, and then it's kind of like mediocre.
But it's still like a 3-mana 4/3, right? And so it's not getting cut down. That's
true.
Like it's going to require a real answer. And I really like that. And what are they going to do? Wandering Emperor? So then they take 2, right? So like that's the power in that card, and I'm really liking that. And so speaking of red, I think one of the biggest things that just kind of crept in there is the Rakdos Sacrifice deck now with Axanil, the 4-mana red
The
god.
Red God, yeah. Yeah, that's the one. So that's the one place I've seen that card. Is it works really well with Oni called Anvil, right? So if you can sack something to Anvil and actually get 4 damage out of it, that it greatly speeds up the clock. So that's been a pretty cool use of the Red God, actually. Hasn't really shown up in like mono red or anything at this point, but it does seem very, very cute, at least in the sacrifice decks. And there's a lot of other, like, so Esper and mono red are probably the 2 most popular decks if you just go through the top 32 of these challenges. But there's a lot of just random stuff. You mentioned dinosaurs, we've seen the Boros decks. So it still seems like a format where it's evolving. People are still figuring out what's going to work and what's going to be good in this format. I will say, I'm still a little sad they didn't rotate, because when I see all the Esper, like if you look at the Esper lists, they've actually evolved a lot to the point where, like, you're not even playing Shieldred in the main deck. You got the Deep Cavern Bats, you got Virtue of Loyalty, you got Subterranean Schooner. Like, you have a lot of these new cards in it, but then you still have, like, Rafine or whatever, which kind of, in some ways, makes it feel like, oh, it's the same thing I've seen for 2.5 years so far. So I kind of wish they had still just rotated, but yeah, Standard is
feel like Rafine is like offensive. Is it? Like, I mean, it's kind of funny to me that you're right. Shieldred is a sideboard card, a tech card in some matchups, but like, yeah, like I think Rafine is fine. I want us to again talk about Standard in the no rotation. Not right now, not like the few months, like a day after it's announced. I want to see what it's like in a year. That's what I want to see. I want to see where, like, how the format plays then. But as of right now,
Rafine will see you there in a year.
Yeah, it'll be there along with Shieldred.
The problem is not Rafine is too strong. It's the problem is I'm bored of Rafine.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't want to see Rafine anymore. Not that Rafine is overly oppressive or something. I don't know. Like, Rafine kind of rises and drops with the metagame, right? But just want to see new cards. You know, imagine, like, we're seeing some new cards. We'll check in that in like 2 weeks once the dust has settled. But imagine how many more cards would be seen if we rotated. So I think that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, they're not oppressive. It's just boring. Like, I just don't want to see Wandering Emperor and Rafine and stuff for like 8 million years. Like, they're good. I get it. They're good. Like, you're done. Rotate. See if you can play in Modern or not, right? Or see if you can play in Pioneer. We're done with Standard. Get out.
But then, like, now you get to see, like, then the good news is, like, there's a majority of cards. This might be one of the friendlier aspects of Standard, right? It is this 3-year non-rotating kind of format, because, you know, just like if I like getting into Pokemon Standard, right? I bought a deck. It's nice to know that cards, like, it just feels like cards stay around for a while. So the deck that I buy into, maybe it gets power crept out by some other new card, but for the most part, it's nice to know that I have a deck or I have cards and I can play with them. And it's, I don't know, it feels good to know that if I wanted to buy a staple in Standard, I can still see Rafine. Again, like, I don't know. I think this is a good thing overall, a net positive thing for Standard. And seeing Rafine a year down the line, I don't think that bothers me. So,
I don't know.
Maybe I'm a glutton for pain. I don't know.
I don't know how Pokemon works, but, like, do they have a million different formats like we do? Because I feel like we have so many, like, you have Pioneer and Modern, and, like, you have infinite formats where your cards never rotate. So maybe having one that changes is a good thing traditionally.
So Pokemon is. I don't know if we should use this as an example, but they have one format. The cards are super simple because it rotates, but also no one plays the game. So, like, most people are collectors. So the fact that the card is, like, mediocre or is not super impressive, like, doesn't matter as much because people are just like, Charizard, yeah, right? So I don't know if this is the model we want, but yeah, it's interesting.
The collector base is there. You're right. That is heavy. That's its bread and butter. But I will say that current Pokemon is actually pretty darn fun. So...
It does make me sad that Magic competitive play is not more of a thing. Just hearing, like, you were mentioning being at this huge One Piece event, right, Grim? Like 1,400 people or something.
Yeah.
And then I just heard they had, like, Flesh and Blood Nationals, 2,400 people playing Flesh and Blood. Like, there's a market there. There's a lot of people that want to go grind sweaty paper card games, and Magic is just, like, not interested in filling that void, I guess. Like, not seriously
Grand
interested.
Prix or whatever. No, what's going on at MagicCon? There's some big event
So at the Magic Con there is a
You mean the
event
side
as part
event?
of the con, side event. Like
Yeah, we
they are
just take our 2,000 player events for granted. We're like, whatever, right? They always happen. And you're like, oh, this Old Arcana, what a big event. We're like, wait a minute, we get this all the time. It's just we don't talk about it because we're used to it.
Yeah, maybe it's
I
just
don't
that it
know.
feels sad compared to how it used to be when we had like SCG
because it's
Grand
on the
Prix every
downswing.
weekend.
It's
Like we were,
aging.
yeah, it's kind of the heading the other direction. But anyway, we got more. Oh, go ahead, Grim. Sorry.
Well, I think that's also like the problem, right? There's a lot of negativity on Standard, and I think the format needs to thrive. So, but I'm not saying like, praise Standard because you should. I'm saying Standard's not bad. I don't know. I mean, I think this Standard is insanely fun compared to where it was, right? So I don't know. If you've been thinking about playing Standard or ever thought about it, just give it a try. Like obviously, barring any absurd financial things that you have to do for it. Like I think the Standard's actually pretty good. Well, I wanted to point out one cool deck that I saw was just a Mindlink Mech and Bloodletter.
Yeah.
I got quadruple damaged. I did not calculate that. I'm not gonna lie to you, and I died instantly. So
Mindlink Mech can do some cool things. That is a super cool card. And I mean,
yeah.
even though I would rather rotate way more often, that is one of the things that you get from slower rotation. Is like Mindlink Mech would have rotated, and you would have never seen this synergy with Bloodletter of Aklazat. So there's some upsides there too. But anyway, let's talk about a couple other formats because there's a lot of formats in Magic. So in Pioneer. Wizards. Apparently, Discover is just as broken as Cascade, and Wizards, for some reason, didn't figure this out. Actually, it's more broken because it's a ETB trigger, so you can just loop a bunch of clones with your Quintorius or with your Trumpeting Carnosaur. So we had a challenge this weekend. Richard, what happened in the Pioneer Challenge?
Yeah, Trumpeting Carnosaur. I was trying to buy from my commander deck. It's $20 on. It's like, yeah, it's absurdly expensive because apparently Discover is good. I will say though, I was building my commander deck and I'm like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to discover into a rampant growth. I can just draw a card.
Yeah.
So it worked out swimmingly for commander. But here we see the problem where you want to fix it for commander and then you break Pioneer. So Quintorius combo running Trumpeting Carnosaur. Does the thing. What is the combo, Seth? How do you go infinite with these cards?
So the combo's
Tell
actually
'em,
super
Seth.
easy. The easiest way to do it is just Quintorius Con. So you play Quintorius, its static ability, whenever you cast a card from exile, drains for 2. And then you build your deck in a way that the only thing its -3 Discover 4 can hit is going to be a way to clone it, which is primarily Spark Double because it lets you keep multiple Quintoriuses on the battlefield. But Clever Impersonator, Mythos of Aluna also show up in some of the builds. So essentially, if you play enough of these 4-mana clones, you play a single Quintorius Con and then just loop enough of them that the static ability kills your opponent on the spot. You would think there would be a high cost to having your mana value, being able to play nothing that costs 4 or less outside of the clones. But in reality, in 2023, like you got split cards, you got late line binding, you got Virtue of Persistence. There's many cards. We also see a lot of the like Magmope as treasure producers as ramp, but there's many cards that you can actually cast for like 1 or 2 mana that technically have a mana value that's like 7 or 8, so it doesn't mess up your Discover combo plan. Krim, how legit do you think these decks are? So obviously it's early in the season. Do you think Quintorius combo or the other one is more of, I guess, a Carnosaur combo where you're copying Carnosaurs and Geological Appraisers a bunch of times and then like Galting or whatever to win? Do you think any of these Discover combo decks are actually legit, or is this a case where people just aren't prepared for this meta and you play some counter spells or whatever and that's gonna take care of the problem?
I mean, right now I'm leaning into what you more so the latter, like you just mentioned. I think it's a new meta. People just haven't prepped for it yet. Opening weekend, I remember at one point Ob Nixilis Adversary was like people were asking for it to be banned in Standard. So just remember that. So I will say Quintorius again, cute combo, but like if I just like I don't know, Fateful Absence it, right? Like what are you doing?
Yeah, or
Like,
counter it. I don't know how the deck ever beats. Like,
I mean,
I've been playing the deck a lot. I got a video coming up for it in a couple of days on the YouTube. But counter spells. Like, if your opponent just always sits on a negate, it's very tricky to actually win.
Yeah, like see, like because then now they've just fizzled your your clone effect essentially, right? Yep. So I mean, like, and like it because you kind of clunk up your deck playing these weird spells, I don't know if you actually grind the late game all that well. You know what I mean?
No.
Like you have a bunch of clones that kind of copy what, right? So right now it's just too early. It's too early. It's a cute combo. It's neat. It's a neat trick, but I think once the meta adapts, more of these, as we've seen, there's a lot more ways to, like, not even just counterspells, just ways to interact with planeswalkers, right? You have Bitter Triumph or whatever, the new 2-mana planeswalker removal, right?
Yeah.
You just have so many ways to interact with planeswalkers now.
What do you think, Richard? Have you seen these decks at all? I don't think they've made it to
it's called
modern yet.
Seth.
Well, yeah, I guess every modern deck is doing
Leyline binding. Like split cards that don't count for the real mana value. Speaking of a standard environment where things do what you think they should do, when you cast a leyline binding for 1 mana, like, do you think it should be considered a 6 mana card? Like, it's they should just get rid of these stupid cards that like don't get cast for what their mana cost says. And I don't know how they would fix that, but I just hate the fact that you don't play any 3 drops, 2 drops, or 1 drops, yet you can cast spells like on every part of your curve. So I don't know. I think this is a real deck. Like, sure, it might suck, but wait till they make a Thoughtseize that's like 8 mana, but you can cast for free. And, you know, like they're. I don't know. I don't think this is going away. I think we're going to see more and more of these decks as we get more and more of these cost reduction cards to further cascade. It's like Dredge. You can't make it go away. It's just always there as long as the mechanic exists.
We talked about it in the last podcast, right? Like, it's just like, hey, resource systems matter. You should probably take that into account. And then now, you know, we used to joke on it, and I said it, and I'll say it again. We are moving in the direction of Yu-Gi-Oh! Resource system? Who cares? Check this out. I'm gonna poop my hand out.
I still can't believe they brought back Cascade. What were they thinking? What a
But it's so sweet for Commander, Seth. I hope I show you guys. It's so sweet.
I mean,
knowing that you can cascade into rampant growth and draw a card, it fixes everything. I'm like, oh, yes.
I feel like this brings us back.
It is relatively Timmy.
It is. Hey, I'm not.
It's pretty Timmy, right?
Well, when I tried to argue that during our podcast, yeah, I'm putting stuff into plays and Timmy, like, should be big.
It's just
not
Timmy.
Timmy
Gigantosaurus, okay, but it's still pretty Timmy.
This is still pretty sweaty. It's too sweaty, right? Like,
I think
a little sweaty, but it works here.
I think this actually wraps us back around to our standard conversation a little bit, where like this is an example, right, of like a mechanic that's really good for Commander, but arguably like hurting 60 card formats. And yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. But if you're playing Pioneer, look out for Discover because it is the hot new thing. We got one more big format to get to though, which is Modern. Richard, I know you've been grinding some Modern over the weekend. How's it been going? And what have you seen as far as new LCI stuff?
Not good because I'm playing Jund. I got tricked. I played 1 league. I 4-1. I'm like, oh, is Jund back, boys? I'm like, this is good. That's because everyone was testing out their terrible LCI cards. Then proceeded to like 2-3 every league afterwards. Why? I'm still working on Jund, but
wait, why?
There's a Merfolk deck apparently floating around that people are hyped about. We have like the 3-mana flash stifle thing, and then the 2-mana enchantment that when your Merfolk gets tapped, they make more Merfolk. I haven't seen that deck, but people are hyped about it. Molten Collapse. I've played it. I've seen other people play it. It's kind of okay. Like it's not fixing your deck or anything. Like, I don't know. It's like okay. I think the hottest actually tech is Amulet Titan with Spelunking. That's the 3-mana enchantment. When it ETBs, you can put a land into play, and then your lands enter the battlefield untapped. The combination of ramp and another amulet makes it really good. And I think Amulet Titan actually won the challenge that happened. Let me just double check.
Yeah, I think it was
Amulet
top
Titan's,
2, actually. Yeah.
It's so
Amulet
funny.
Titan's everywhere because
the
it's also a
meme.
One Ring abusing deck.
Yep.
So, yeah, Spelunking is the truth. I don't know.
What was it, Seth, where we memed on it? Like, I think this is good in Amulet Titan because everything's good in Amulet Titan.
Yeah, I think we did meme on that, but yeah, I mean, it seems like it's bumped Tain up a bit. Like the deck has been top tier, but it hasn't been like tip top tier. And based on these challenge results, maybe Splunking actually puts it at the very top of the meta. Not that that deck actually needs to get better. One of the things that surprised me, Richard, is have you seen the Tishana's Tideminder, the Flash Merfolk? It's been pretty widely adopted in Crashing Footfalls. That I expected it to show up in the janky Merfolk decks that everyone likes, but if you look at like Crashing Footfall lists, most of the ones that have like won leagues or performed in challenges are playing like 3 copies of it. Is it that good of a card? Is that like a better than Merfolk card that you can just play in real real decks? Sorry, Merfolk players.
I didn't even know
Yeah.
that was a thing. So everyone memes on the fact that Rakdos Scam is 10% of the meta and like Modern is Modern Horizons 2, but there are a ton of decks. Like I played like a lot of different decks. I never ran into a Crashing Footfalls deck post LCI.
Ooh.
What are you stifling? Like what is
I mean,
why is it in the deck?
you can get a land, you can get a Fury, you can get a Grief, I guess. It's 3 mana, so I guess that's part of it too, is like you have the
Interesting.
Cascade issue. But yeah, if you look at the second challenge of the weekend, the one on the 18th, first place deck Crashing Footfalls with 2 Tidebinders, and then third was Crashing Footfalls with 3 Tidebinders. So
I think Tidebinder's the truth. Like it's cheap enough, it's aggressive enough, and it's literally aggressive too because it's a body. And it's at a nice part of the curve where you can't just simply push it by just casting it for 1. So I like that card. I think that card's sick.
yeah, it's one of I think
I
that's
need
one
to
of the
see someone
strongest
playing
cards
this.
in the
I
deck.
feel it's a 3-mana 3/2 though with Flash. Like is that's good enough?
It's also like I think the shutting down the ability forever is also pretty relevant. Like if you hit a 1-ring or something, like that's big value to like
Oh,
just
is
shut
that
it
what
off
it's for?
completely for as long as it stays on the battlefield. Yeah.
How does
Okay, I
that
can see
work
that.
with Sheoldred, right? Like, can I? 'Cause
Sheoldred?
it works on triggered, right? So it only
Yes.
just exiles the trigger that you exile, right? So like, I could only
No.
like,
The
negate
permanent loops
But
it
then there's no
all
abilities
all
on Shieldred
abilities.
afterwards.
Yeah,
that's
so if you hit a
yeah.
Shieldred's just a 4/5. No death touch even. It like gets rid of the death touch too.
Dude, that's sick, dude.
I had someone.
Yeah, that card-
Someone got my land in stand. I played up a Mishra's Foundry, and someone got it with Tidebinder. I was like, oh god, that's not good. Yeah, got me, I guess.
Oh, it actually. Oh,
Dude, that's crack. Richard.
okay.
I don't know.
Okay, I can
How's that
see
not
this.
hype?
This is like the stupid fire and ice thing where all you're doing is just tapping your land, and you're like, that
Yeah.
seems dumb, but like it's very effective.
And then you're like, I
It's
can't beat
very
it. Yeah, I can't
effective.
cast my stuff. Rhinos. All right.
Interesting. This terrible control deck that abuses Cascade. I love Cascade.
Have you seen Quintorius in Modern, Richard? That was like I was trying to make a list of the cards that have actually showed up in Modern from LCI, and Quintorius made it. It's been people have been playing it in the like Omnath Beanstalk deck, like a copy or 2 as a 5-drop, because like Cascade, Quintorius into Bloodbraid, into Shardless Agent, into Beanstalk. Do your thing. Live in the dream.
That's the dream. Man, we talked about we actually memed about this on the podcast. Like you do the whole chain, they take a bunch of damage as well from
Yep.
all of this.
Yep. It's happening.
I think that's
it's really
meme, though.
happening.
I think it's too cute, but maybe it's here to stay. Do you really need to do this?
Probably not. It might be one of those things where it's like people are trying out the new card, so why it's good enough that you can throw a copy or 2 in it and still like 5-0 your league or whatever. But whether it actually is like the most optimal use of that slot, yeah, maybe not. But any other thoughts on constructed Magic before we might actually answer some fish mail? Some people really want fish mail. I'm sorry, fish mail lovers. I know it's been a couple weeks.
I just gotta ask one question then, because it's about Quintorius.
Yes.
So yes, we've seen it show up in older formats, but like, what's your thoughts of it in Standard? Because so far in Standard, I thought it's kind of just like okay at best.
It's been fine. Like I haven't played with it as much as I'd like to. I have lost to some people that just go super hard on the Discover plan, and they're like playing Geological Appraiser, Quintorius Chimmel. Chimmel I really like. That might be my favorite Discover card, where you just like slam that, and like the value, if it sticks out, is so high, where I'm like, should I just be throwing this in like every non-aggro deck, just a copy or 2, just like because it's like so much value if it sticks?
Yeah, because they fixed Cascade, right? And it's like this weird like card advantage engine. Like you can like people are thinking like, oh well, what are we doing? Are we speeding our way, ramping, and or like reanimating this or something? No, just play your normal game plan, top it off with this, and this is your card advantage engine. I played a Super Friends deck, and even though like only Wandering Emperor can activate her ability at the end of turn, didn't matter because I was just pooping out every Planeswalker in my deck, and I was getting every answer I could find along the way, and like. Dude, I think Camille or Chamille is kind of nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, the card's actually really sweet. It's been better than I expected it to be. That's the Discover card that has surprised me the most, I would say. Because I thought 6 mana, that's kind of a lot, but it's looked good every time I've seen it and every time I played it, honestly. So
yeah.
Anyway, Richard, why don't we do some fish mail this week?
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Jupu2707 in episode 211. That's early 2019. You guys predicted some crazy stuff about stuff that has come true, such as alchemy, Black Border Transformers, and Planeswalkers losing their spark. Do you have any more predictions that will come true in the next 4 years?
Oh, maybe we got to do another. I probably should go listen to that episode again because I don't even remember predicting all those things. But hey, we will take the win. I think Universes Beyond will be in Standard. I think it's gonna happen in the next 4 years. They're just gonna throw it in there. Like I think it's gonna happen. That's my easy one.
I said it. I'll say it again. I think I even have a bet with a friend on this, and I think in 4 years. So what year is that? 2027. Okay, so I think sometime maybe by 2027, early 2027 or end of 2026 even, I think Oko comes off the ban list.
Okay, I could see us power creeping our way into Oko being safe.
Power creep.
Give us like one more Horizon set, right? Because we have one, right? Coming down the pipeline, and then maybe a few more sets, and I feel like Oko is maybe let's like how about this? Maybe they don't take Oko off the list, but maybe there's going to be a Planeswalker or something that's better than Oko.
Ooh. Okay, yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, they brought back Discover and power creeping Oko doesn't seem
yeah, they're gonna release a patch note. We fixed Oko.
Yeah.
and so we dropped this card and it's even better.
So we knew Oko had some problems. Sometimes the 3/3 is not big enough to attack through your opponent's blockers. So Watsy.
I think in 4 years we lose our multiverse. And it will just be Universes Beyond and Dominaria. I think we're not going to get any new planes. I think like stuff like Strixhaven would not exist anymore. Like, why make Strixhaven when you can just Universes Beyond Harry Potter? I was thinking what is the end game? And I think the end game of Magic the Gathering is Lego. So Lego... Yes, I said Endgame. So Lego like uses everyone's IP, right? You can buy Lego Marvel, Lego Disney, whatever. And then they also have like some Lego branded stuff, like Dreams or something. I don't know, the ninja thing or something like I don't know, right? But it's like very specific. It's one plane or it's one world. So I think we just collapse back down to Dominaria. All the other worlds are taken by Universes Beyond, and you will just play Universes Beyond. You will play Lord of the Rings set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whenever a new set comes out that's hot, like imagine if Magic the Gathering was Universes Beyonded at the beginning of the Marvel MCU. You can so imagine there's like 8 Marvel sets in Universes Beyond, right? So I think that's where we're going. I feel we're going to end up there. So I think we're just going to have like one Magic release a year. It'll be Dominaria. The other slots will be taken by Universes Beyond. And of course, because everything's Universes Beyond, they'll be in Standard, they'll be in Commander, Legacy, whatever. But I think we're just going to go full throttle here and we're going to collapse to a single Magic universe. And then the multiverse will be Universes Beyond.
I really hate that. I hope we don't have to play with Marvel cards. I could never. Sounds terrible, man.
Well, you wait till they make terrible Marvel cards by people that don't appreciate Marvel.
I just hate all
Imagine
my
if Doctor
Marvel
Who was a
stuff.
2-mana 1/1 that drew
Oh.
card ETB and that was it. Would you forgive them?
First off, Doctor Who, you mean Doctor Strange. You respect,
Doctor Strange.
You respect my favorite character, all right? You put respect on his name. Second off, don't put that evil out there, okay?
Well, Doctor Strange doesn't even get a card. It's like 8
bet-
Spider-Mans and 8 Wolverines, and that's it.
If the internet wants to see me cry, because I know the internet hates that I love Marvel, but if how they really want to hurt me, you can say what you want about my love for Marvel, but what would really hurt me is if Doctor Strange sucks.
Chances are he'll suck.
Bro,
Yeah?
calm down.
He's
That-
not
down.
high on the power rankings. Like the
God,
power rankings of Marvel
Richard.
characters, like he's not that high. He's gonna suck.
No,
He's gonna be.
no.
What if he's an uncommon crit?
Stop.
Oh my god, the insult.
Oh.
Stop that. Say what you want about me. You leave Stephen Strange out of this. My dog's name is Dormammu, his arch enemy, for a reason. I love that man. That is a good card. It will be good. Stop with the negative.
I'm gonna get counseling ready for Krim. I think Doctor Strange is not gonna show up or will be an uncommon. There's no way. There's too many A-listers they gotta put at Mythic and Rare. Like there's no way they can shove them all in, right? It's
Yeah, you
like
gotta
more of
have-
the Spark Planeswalkers. Like unfortunately, you're an uncommon with no uptick.
You're gonna,
I mean,
release
some-
day, you're just gonna hear it right there. Like, yo, this set sucks, guys. I don't know. I think it was a bad idea because Doctor Strange is just awful.
I mean, look at the Lord of the Rings set. Like Gandalf, none of the Gandalf cards ended up being very good, and that's like one of the most iconic.
But he got like 6 versions.
But they
Think
all
of
kind
Baragon.
of were like medium. Yeah, I mean, Baragon. Was he even a high tier Lord of the Rings character though? But some of the Lord of the
No,
Rings
but
characters
think of like
kind
the
of got done
Legolas's
wrong.
and Gimli's or whatever. They
Yeah.
didn't. Apparently, they're not as popular as the other characters.
But I think
Build
if
the
it
pony.
becomes, let's say it's a little bit of both, right? Let's say, like Seth said, UB becomes standard, right? If it becomes standard, Doctor Strange has got to be good.
All right. Maybe we'll have a dedicated podcast where we could go crazy and brainstorm where we see ourselves in 4 years. But hopefully, we still exist. Magic the Gathering hasn't gone the way of the dodo. Maybe we'll save it later. But I'm curious if Magic Arena exists in 4 years.
Oh,
Or if it's been replaced. But
Ooh.
yeah, we'll save that for another episode. So if you have
Anyway.
questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on here.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 460 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard, Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit and Magic at Sea for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic. So, until then, have an amazing week, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.